I think we are already reaching critical mass, and I think it is 4 o'clock, and we have a packed agenda today. My name is Michael Strubin, and I will be the moderator of this webinar today. We expect perhaps a few more people to join in, but they will be joining us as we proceed through the slide deck. Giorgio, can we advance one slide? This is the agenda. We are going to treat the timings with a little bit of relaxedness, so to speak, but we have a packed agenda with several speakers that have presented, that have prepared some very interesting slides, which we will share with you after this event. We also turned on the recording because we plan to make this recording available on a public folder, which will be communicated on a public site, which will be communicated to you after this event. Can we advance one more slide? I'd like to go through some ground rules. First of all, of course, thank you for joining the webinar. We have already touched on the recording, so that's great. We would like to invite you to help us make this webinar successful. Please stay muted. Please feel free to use emojis and reactions during the presentation. If you have comments or questions, please use the chat. If you'd like to speak, there will be a moment for question and audience, for question and answer. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. And if we are inviting you to speak, please then turn on your video and say who you are. One slide forward, please. Many of us have been to many of these Zoom calls, but my usual platform is a different one. So just wanted to remind you of some of the key controls. The mute button is on the lower left-hand side. The chat, where you can access the chat and pose your questions, is on that middle red arrow, and on the right red arrow points to the icon where you can raise your hand as well as select your emojis, or clap your hands or do anything else that you would like to express as a reaction to any of the presentations. Can we go forward with the slide? One more? Yes, so here we are, and we're really making good time. I know that Enrique is already on the slide, on this call, so I would like to invite Enrique Martins to share his presentation with us. Enrique Martins, he has so many hats. I chose the former chair of the eHealth Network. Some of you may remember that before. And I think, there was a time, I think in the early 20s, I think, when Enrique, or in the late teens, when Enrique was the very able, capable chair of the eHealth Network representing the Portuguese government, and he now has several hats, and he may tell you about more of them going forward. Enrique, please show your video and consider yourself unleashed. Here you have the floor, Enrique.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your kind words, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to be brief. I'll suggest to move on the slides then, or I can move them on my side, but I guess, well, very briefly, I was asked to give you a little bit of context, maybe policy context, techno-policy context, and I tried my best to not do it super busy slide, but trying to capture what could mean interoperability from sort of a legal policy project slash services. And what you see here is a journey that in a way is almost capturing about 20 years. In reality, we started discussing at a policy level due to a very interesting legal case on cross-border reimbursement of spectacles, if I believe was the case, that people were going around Europe buying spectacles and not getting reimbursed from their home country insurance companies. And this made European court say this is against freedom movement and freedom of goods and services. So Commission, Parliament, you go, you have to create some law to allow people to have rights when they have cross-border healthcare. That's when the directive on cross-border healthcare, as we often call it, was born. It started discussion 2008, and at that time, 2008, 2007, we also started discussing about exchange of information. That was when the draft of the first project called EPSOS was done. And actually, we were very lucky because the lawmaker was, of course, being influenced by the right people. And the cross-border directive includes the creation of the e-health network, which soon has become the forum of excellency for the discussions on e-health, on interoperability, on cross-border services for the EU and beyond. When COVID came, it became a hub of discussion, and it is now influencing through the COVID certificate, but also I would say through the international patient summary that followed the European summary. It has influenced the world. Now, this directive also says that when people travel, they need to have their health data traveling with them so that care is safe. And this is a fundamental concept for what we are going to talk today and in the following days. Now, the directive was approved. EPSOS, Expand, Trillium Bridge 1, Trillium Bridge 2, EID, eSense, all of these projects have had a tremendous impact on creating the specifications, the audit criteria, the go-live criteria, the multilateral agreements that made it so that we have, since January 18, services, live services, what I call first-generation services, so patient summary and e-prescription. Countries have been joining this service, as you see there, over the next years. There was a small interruption of 2 to 3 years in the COVID time, and now many flags are piling. This is what is now called MyHealth EU, and it started as a voluntary collaboration. It is now going to be mandatory if the regulation is improved. Now, in this process, was 18, we started talking about the European exchange format. Then we had a recommendation on the format, expanding from the 2 areas to 5 domains. And as you see in the orange, if these are what I call generation 2 services, and today's discussion is about one contribution that is critical, which is FHIR implementation guides for laboratory reports. So it covers this wide part there before the services actually go live. So we're starting this discussion in 23, and I guess we will have services maybe in 25. Okay. This is just to show how long everything has been taking. We may need to discuss, can we do it faster? But this is sort of in a very brief. Can we move to the next one? So next slide. Yeah, so now let's focus on this narrow space very quickly. Next slide. And this narrow space is what I'm trying to capture here. So if we zoom into this time zone, this is where we are now. We have received the specifications, recommendations from the European exchange format. We have benefited from one project dedicated to the exchange format, Health. We are now in the time span of what I call the Expand the Age project, a 2-year coordination support action, which I am very happy and glad to coordinate. But we also have ongoing work at the secondary use, which soon will have to link to primary use. We need to discuss that at a later stage, not today, but it's happening, it's starting. We start to have many projects, many people, many stakeholders asking the question, how do we link primary use, exchange of labs, exchange of images with secondary use, analytics on labs, AI on labs, AI on imaging reports. We have been busy trying to get the regulation approved, European Health Data Space Regulation. And I believe next year we will have sort of a post European Health Data Space era. So hopefully it will be approved, it will be legislated. We have new projects starting, the joint action and the new research and innovation project on the exchange format. And in a way, Expand DH will hand over to these two lines of work and ongoing continuation. Next slide. So to conclude, just tell you very quickly. So the European health record exchange format is part of the regulation. It basically is encompassed by data sets defining structures, coding systems, technical specifications, and it will be made true from a legal point of view through what we call delegated acts or implementing acts. So these are, as it were, legal acts that the European Commission can produce autonomously as long as the regulation has been approved by the European Council, by the Council of the European Union, and the European Parliament. So once the regulation has been approved, there is an autonomy for producing these delegated. Why is important for this discussion is these delegated acts can make, for example, mandatory that a specific technical specification, such as FHIR implementation on a specific domain, becomes the rule for Europe. Now, how is that possible? If we build a good specification, a well-supported, community-supported specification that provides the European Commission confidence enough that the ecosystem is capable of adopting and adapting to that specification. This is how, in my perspective, the thing works. Community comes up with specs. There are channels. Right now we have the subgroups, technical and semantic subgroups of the health network that beef up this information, form guidelines, which are later adopted by the health network. With the new regulation, these become no longer voluntary guidelines, but compulsory delegated acts that become the rule of law in the European Union. Next slide. So Article 6, as I said, is there. So when people ask, oh, what is the importance of the exchange format, and what is its legal basis? Well, if the regulation is approved, and I think it will, we have good signs that it will. Let's hope for it. It will become law. It's not an optional thing. It's not one of these standards that some people say, oh, maybe we'll adopt it or not, if it's very useful for industry, if it's very useful for doctors and patients. No, that's not the point. Well, today I want to bring you the policy perspective. Policy perspective is Europe cannot wait any longer for people to agree. It needs to move, and this is what has been pressuring and pressurizing this decision for the regulation of space. And mind you, this is the first of 13 data spaces that are envisioned. Next slide, and we're about to finish. Article 2, you see, exchange shall be based on the European exchange format. So MyHealth EU is this service that cross-border connects countries, but it is also important to see that the exchange format is the reference to which and against which local, national, regional electronic health records need to be certified against. Now, this certification process is very likely to be at national level, but having to conform and check for European level conformance, namely how can the electronic records of hospitals around Europe, of vendors around Europe, conform to the specifications, to the domains that have been defined, will be progressively defined. Next slide. Yeah, just a word of thank you to my expanding consortium. Please join our Industry XNet. Those of you who are from industry, also join the summit, 12th of December in Brussels or online. There's much more information, next slide, on our website. These slides will be made available, and therefore I added some links to the project so you can keep an eye on these things. And thank you so much, Michael, for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you, Enrique, for making time out of your busy schedule to share that with us. I couldn't think of a more suited person, better suited person to give us this history here. And I think this should give everybody a sense of what the political and the policy push will be for the European Electronic Health Record Exchange format, and of course the FHIR standards, which are very much linked to it. And more here to tell us about the FHIR standards and specifically the HL7 FHIR Implementation Guide for laboratory results, which have just been published. I want to welcome now Giorgio to tell us more. Giorgio Cangioli, HL7 Europe Technical Lead, to tell us more about the FHIR Lab report. So Giorgio, the chair is you, and Enrique, feel free to now go on video, turn off your video again, but please stay with us because there will be some discussions and conversations with stakeholders. Thank you so much. Giorgio, here we go.
Thank you so much, Michael. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those that are on the other side of the ocean. What I would like to do today in a quick way is to give an overview of this new FHIR AG, the HL7 Europe Laboratory Report AG, trying to give in a little bit of the context, the review of the guide, and just to see if you are interested in him to see how to be getting involved in that activity. So let's give a little bit of the context. So what this guide is, why we started this process and why we did it now, some timeline information, who is involved, and where you need to start if you would like to learn more about that standard. So what it is, as written in the title, we speak about FHIR Implementation Guide for the European Laboratory Report. But for those that do not know what a FHIR AG is, a FHIR AG provides a set of rules that explain how you are going to use that standard, the FHIR standard, for solve some specific problem. This is the concept of the implementation guide. And the good thing of the FHIR is that you have a human-readable part that you can use to understand as a human being. That usually is a web browsable package. And you have here the link where you can get that human-readable part. But this is based on a set of computable specifications that are still FHIR resources that can be used. And you can see here some example of package to validate the instances. And the two things are, let's say, you have the human representation, but the base is that formal standard. We say that this FHIR AG try to resolve a specific purpose, and as the title say, what you would like to try to specify? The lab report. We are not going to look to pathology report or genetic report. It is a content guide, so we are not trying at that stage to describe how you are going to search or to share the report, but only how this report need to be specified in FHIR. It is a guide that applies for the European context, even if we are trying to look more widely on that purpose. But when we say European, we are not meaning only cross-border. We are trying to define rules that can be reused also at the national level for different kind of use cases. That's the reason why this guide is not limited to human being subject. We consider also lab report that can refer to a food or other thing. A human subject could be a recognized identified person or not. This is the wide context of that guide. Why and why now? obviously, the idea is to try to agree a set of common rules that could be applied across Europe in order to facilitate the harmonization of all the national initiatives, in order to give also better support of the what has been mentioned before by Enrique, so the specification of the European EHR exchange format. And we started now because, as already explained by Enrique, we are, the lab report is the first thing that likely will be implemented in the MyHealth EU. It is foreseen for wave 8, so next year we'll have the MyHealth EU specification that likely will be based on that guide. But when we started, we recognized that there were a lot of initiatives that were starting, including national initiatives. And so we recognized the need of having a standardization activity, and this is why we started that project. Who is involved? It is a standard produced by HL7, but it's not. What the major role of HL7 here has been that of giving a room to facilitate the creation of a community of experts. We have a very different kind of person that attended. We have representatives from different European countries and also from US. We have representatives from the European project initiative, including Expand DH and MyHealth EU. And the thing that I think is an added value of the project is that we try to keep the expertise and helping people to work on that, creating two collaborative focus subgroups, one focusing on semantic and functional requirement that has been led by INEC, and the part that is more focused on how to represent in FHIR that part. That is a part that I'm trying to facilitate. So if you want to get a look, this is where you need to go, HL7.eu FHIR laboratory. You can find here also the history. You can download the package if you want to use it. That you can download and have the guide offline. For those that are interested in looking to the source and using the source, we have also a GitHub repository where you can get all these artifacts. The timeline, as told, we started in March, but now we have the first frozen version made in October, and we started about in process that will end in the next day. After that date, we will supposed to proceed with a reconciliation of the comment that we receive in order to be able to have a stable version for January. January will be a milestone for us because we will have, and we'll be catering, we'll give more detail on that later. We will have a connected one in which we are supposed to put our hands on to see real implementation of that guide and learn more in order to be able to publish the standard for try use version in January. And then obviously the process will continue with the maintenance of the guide and the future version. Even if the ballot will end the next day, we supposed to have continued feedback collection along after the November deadline. I mentioned two things, the balloting and the feedback collection. The balloting is a formal process used by HL7 that is needed for getting feedback and comment. This is limited in time. It is only for the HL7 voting member. But there is another important thing that is the specification feedback. This is open to anyone. The comment can be put by any time. And to do that, you need to just register to the gira.hl7.org. You can register and you can go there and you have a button create. You select a specification, the European lab report, and you can add your suggestion for change or improvement, any feedback you may have for making the specification better. I put here a link where you can find more detailed information, and Catherine can provide you some information later about how to be better engaged on that part of feedback collection. Let's go to the overview of the guide. So in the guide, you will find three kind of artifacts: the logical model, the FHIR profile, and the model mapping. Logical model define what is the content, independent on how this is represented. In the guide, we refer to the European guideline, the approved version. So we gave a FHIR representation of this European guideline. And then we specify how these elements are mapped into actual FHIR profile. So we have then specification that say how to use the FHIR resource and also some terminology artifact in order to be able to build a conformant laboratory report. We started using also a new thing that are the obligation. I'll not go into much detail, but beside the structural constraint, you can provide a way to give some functional constraint on the element, describing what are the capabilities that each actor may, should, or shall support. In terms of design choice, we had to balance two different needs. From one side, in several European countries, lab reports are legally signed documents. On the other side, we know that in the rest world, in the FHIR world, people expect to query and to search for the diagnostic report, the report by using the diagnostic report. So we try to find a solution that balance that document paradigm view with the expectation to use the diagnostic report. And we did that defining the lab report as a document bundle, means as a FHIR document, but requiring to including always a diagnostic report. What does it mean? Means that you have, as a, let's say, as an ideal entry point, the diagnostic report with the result, the specimen, the order, and all the other information. That report refer a composition. The composition has a structure that is it reflect what is the structure of the IHE-XD lab as well, with the two options, one section or a section with subsection. But all that is wrapped into a bundle of type documents so that you have a consistent and package, let's say, that include all the information that you need, that can be signed, that can be exchanged. But in that case, when you exchange that bundle, in any case, you can always think to be able to query a server by using the diagnostic report. To conclude, without going into detail, this is the first implementation guide. It is supposed to be part of an ecosystem of coherent set of layer specification. That means that we expect that different guides will cooperate in order to support the specification of the different kind of document. We are already some initial concrete example of this. For example, we have the Swiss guide that obviously is based on the lab report of the Swiss, but this is conformant with the European lab report that we are defining. And this is not only limited to a Swiss guide. We have the new Italian guide on the lab report that follow the same approach, and also the Czech one. That means that you can have national lab report that, let's say, are already conformant with the possible European cross-border guide, assuming that the MyHealth EU guide, as it is now, will be derived from the HL7 Euro Prime when it will be published. Just to move a little bit quicker, what is another added value is to facilitate the reuse. We know that lab report and patient summary are two domains that are covered. We are not yet there in the sense that the patient summary now is a CDA, but it's likely that in the future, we hope in the future, could be also a FHIR document. So one could be derived from the European lab report, the other for the IPS. And what we did now is obviously we need to have a different kind of context, but so the observation, for example, is not now formally derived from the IPS observation, but it has been designed in such a way that when the context of use is the same, like a subject, the human subject recognized, then the lab report result is conformant with the IPS one. What does it mean that? That when you will have your lab report with the observation, Then you can take the observation that you have in lab report, put in your patient summary, and that observation will be conformed with the rule of the patient summary, facilitating then the reusage of data. So, as I told, we are only in the first milestone. We have a long journey in front of us. So it's not too late to get engaged, to be involved. This may happen in different way. You can just stay tuned. We are going to organize, we plan to organize a webinar. We'll have a tutorial in Athens during the working group meeting on that. You can support us providing your feedback by using Jira, as explained before. So it's easy way to improve the implementation. I hope that you can also, if you are interested in put your hands on, you can participate to the FHIR Connectathon or other event like that. And I hope that you can be so interested in that you can join our meeting, and I will provide later information on how to do that and contribute to the development of that guide. Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. The floor, I give you back the floor. Thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, George, with remarkable efficiency and very, very good timekeeping. Thank you so much. I think some key takeaways here. HL7 is just a forum for the development of these specifications. You're doing lots of work with different country representatives, and we have now a number of representatives from some countries, from the Czech Republic, Italy, and Spain, also in our panel of stakeholders. And we also have one representative from a company that makes laboratory information systems here with us, because we kind of anticipated that this group here would be a shy group. That's why we thought maybe let's start first with a round of reactions and questions and comments from some of the stakeholders. So I'd like to invite you now Heinik to go first, and Giorgio, could you advance one slide? We start with Heinik, then Patrizio and Manel and George. And this gives you time here in the audience to raise your questions in the chat so that we also have some time for audience interaction. So Heinik, your turn.
Thank you, Mikhail. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me shortly introduce myself and the organization that I am representing here. Next slide, please. I'm working for the National eHealth Center. This is actually a section in the Ministry of Health, and a section which is responsible for the strategic and program management of the digital health in the country. It supports also the legislation in the area of digital health and has the overall responsibility for digitization of the healthcare sector, including development of national digital healthcare architecture, preparation and management of implementation projects, and management of national digital health infrastructure. Our ultimate goal is also to manage all the necessary interoperability assets, including the selection of the standards and terminologies that would serve as a basis for our interoperability, not only within the country, but also in the cross-border projects. As you all know, probably Czech Republic is one of the countries that joined the MyHealth EU project as from the wave 1, and we are still being active in this project as well as on other European collaboration levels. Next slide, please. Michael, could you move? Yeah, thank you. A few words about myself. I have, let's say, a long history of experience in the digital health. I used to work as for more than 60 years as a developer of information systems for laboratories, and later as a consultant. At this moment, I'm responsible for the interoperability program in the Czech Republic. I'm in the same time head of the interoperability standards department at the eHealth agency, and also a member of the board of HL7 Czech Republic and its technical lead. I would like to mention that I was keen to be a lead of the task within the Cross-EHELS project, which formulated the laboratory functional specifications, and also one of the contributors of the EHELS network guidelines for laboratories. And together with Giorgio, which he has already mentioned, I'm one of the facilitators of the FHIR IG EU lab project. Next one. Czech Republic is now trying to not to catch the train, but to be on board of the train, which is speeding up towards the digitalization and towards, of course, the interoperability across Europe. As a basis for our activity, we could use the new eHealth Act, which has been approved or adopted in 2021, and gives to the ministry the right and possibility to select the national standards, recommend them, and even in some cases to make them mandatory for healthcare providers, and especially for the exchange of clinical documents. That's the basis for our work. And of course, we are focused on the development and implementation of EHR XF-based national standards, in brackets derived, because that's the necessary step that every member state would have to do. And we so far prepared actually 4 or 5 draft guidelines for trial use, guidelines in all of the priority areas of of the EHDS, expected EHDS regulation. And we published those standards in spring of this year. We expect, of course, to work further on those standards and adjust them according to the further development of European FHIR guidelines and global guidelines. And this work should conduct in 2024, next year. And we also have some prepared funds from the EU funding sources to finance national rollout projects, and that work should start also next year. And the final slide from my side is just, could you move to next, please? Yeah, just a brief snapshot of the laboratory guideline, which actually has been created as compatible with the present EU HL7 EU laboratory FHIR IG. However, the next version, which we'll start working on just after this meeting, will be directly derived from that guideline. So that's the status in the Czech Republic, and thank you very much for possibility to present today here. Thank you. Back to you, Michael.
Heinik, thank you so much for this. Giorgio, could you advance one slide? This has been a really good presentation of how the European and international standards interact with what you do in the Czech Republic. So thank you very much for this. Patrizio, you're next. And yes, please turn on your video.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. I'm Patrizio Fonzi from SOGEI. I'm a project leader in the healthcare sector, in particular in the electronic health record project. I think we missed a slide, maybe the previous one, but it's not a problem. Okay, thanks. As you can see, SOGEI is is a member of the HL7 Italy organization, and as you can see by the slide, the HL7 Italy organization has formed a core group to the creation of the laboratory report implementation guideline, FHIR implementation guideline, and I took part of that. I listed here also some members like Leonardo Caro, CTO HL7 Italy, Maria Siguranza, Maria Giovanna Preziosi, and Davide Spano. Next slide, please. The journey starts obviously with the manifest. Okay, not the previous one. Sorry. No. Okay, you have different orders on the next one, I think, and then you have to move back. So if you please go forward. No. Okay. The journey starts with the manifest. That following similar example in Europe has been placed in a Confluence platform where you can find all the documents and agenda of each meeting with the HL7 Italy community. The HL7 Italy community is fundamental in this. Okay, that's it. So in the right part of the slide, you can find the manifest. The HL7 Italy community is fundamental in this process because obviously the last 2 years the community has grown fast thanks to all the projects that use standardization process as main driver of the project itself, like the electronic health record, obviously, and also thanks to the great amount of initiatives, trainings, and events of HL7. This community, as we will see in the workflow, takes part on every step that lead to the publication of the implementation guideline of the laboratory report, helping the core group with sharing the experience, with the issue handling, and with the open point discussion. Can you please move back to the slide, the one you were with the, okay. As we can see here, the manifest talks about 3 phases. The part of development, we use the GitHub tool to insert the input files like templates, images, logos, file shorthand, and all the other input parts. You can find there the link to the GitHub. Then obviously the publication part that involves 3 different environments: the sandbox, the build, which are where we are now, and the production. And you can find the link to the build. In this moment, we are in the ballot phase, during the ballot procedure, which began in the end of June, and follows the JIRA balloting standard of HL7 International FHIR. And we used the GitHub for the issue handling. In this moment, we have solved all the change proposal. We have answered to all the question of the community, and we started the fast ballot final phase. So we will be able to switch to production in a very short time. The most important part that obviously that obviously Giorgio mentioned before is the dependency of HL7 Europe Laboratory Report implementation guide. We were compliant all the journey, but we had the dependency only in the ballot phase. Okay, I think the time is finished, so I thank you for the opportunity, and I pass the ball.
Thank you, Patrizio. I think you have so much more to tell you, and maybe we find an opportunity for more exchanges of this kind here. We're getting a real good sense of the remarkable diversity of the HL7 community. And I invite Manel from Spain, Ministry of Health, to go next. Manel?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you well, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's start. So next slide, please, Giorgio. or Michael? Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone. We are here from the Ministry of Health of Spain, concretely in the interoperability EU office, European office, where we are working to support the cross-border services at European level, and as well supporting the interoperability at national level in our 18 autonomous regions we have. So a part of that, as you can see, I have 15 years experience working in the healthcare sector, in the integration and interoperability sector, working in big companies as Roche or HL7 Spain, or public governments as we have here in Catalonia or in public hospitals. Next slide, Giorgio or Michael. Okay, so in Spain we have a complex scenario, we have to say. We are named informally as the mini Europe. So we have 18 autonomous regions. So we have to coordinate all the interoperability and the integrations between all that autonomous regions. So for that reason, we have a centralized electronic health record where we have integrated with any of these autonomous regions. But not just that, if not, we have to follow the regulations we have at European level. So that means we have to develop services for our citizens as a prescription or patient summary service that we have in production nowadays. And all this going through the OpenNCP system that exists at European level that allows us to exchange that clinical data throughout any member state. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we are working together with the European Commission, defining the cross-border services. So that means that we know that we have the approval from European Commission to the new services will become using HL7 FHIR. So on the laboratory report 1, it will be the one, the first to be developed, and for that reason we are here with all of you. So that means that for us as national system, we have some impact to transform our architecture that now is working in HL7 CDA. So for that reason, in the past, before take the decision to transition to FHIR, we decided to do a prototype, and as we had a good feedback, we decided to move on. And next slide, please. And here you have the architecture we used for that prototype. So basically, we used FHIR and EHR base for OpenHR to test the different archetypes, different interfaces. So we evaluated that, and we saw that was very quickly to implement. The FHIR implementation guide we defined it in HL7 Europe seems okay for us. So we decided to go ahead to implement FHIR at national level. So happy to receive any questions you have in our Q&A session we have. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you so much, Manuel, and I like very much your reference to Spain as the mini Europe. Trying to figure out who is your Catalonia, who's your Galicia, but let's not get there. Giorgio, let's advance the slide one more. We have one more speaker who has the thankless task of needing to be really short, but of course I'll be happy to give you a few extra minutes. George, can you please unmute yourself and share with you your feedback from a slightly different perspective, a vendor organization, computer control systems in Greece. Thank you, George.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Karapetakos. I'm working for CCS on software development and interfaces implementation. CCS is a Greek company. We provide LIS and e-health solutions. Our main products are MedLab LIS, EMA, which is a blood bank management system, and the HL7, which is an atomic pathology LIS. We are market leader in Greece hospital LIS market. We have installations in Europe and Middle East. We have more than 100 active HL7 interfaces with various HIS and EMR systems, and we like FHIR. Can we move now to the next slide? Well, why we like FHIR? We mainly like FHIR because it offers easy integration with various other systems. FHIR uses modern web standards such as RESTful APIs and JSON for data exchange. This can make implementation and integration with new systems much easier. FHIR is designed to be flexible, scalable, and easily extensible. FHIR allows for easy scalability and customization according to the diverse requirements within the healthcare domain. From our experience, in interface implementation, there is always need for extension. FHIR interfaces can be extended easily. FHIR reduces development time. FHIR provides predefined data models and standard APIs. Developers don't need to design data models from scratch and don't face data exchange complexity issues. Well, however, we like FHIR most because FHIR encourages innovation. Making it easier for developers to create new healthcare applications and services that can easily integrate with existing systems, FHIR creates a friendly environment to innovation, allowing development of solutions that improve patient care and drive advancements in the healthcare industry. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very quick, George. Thank you. I'd like to probably add something myself here. Business must like FHIR because it also increases your market size. Because if you can sell your products and services not just in your home market but elsewhere where the same specifications are valid, that must mean improved competition, improved innovation, bigger markets, and potentially a truly digital European single market.
Yes, actually.
Go ahead.
We can provide FHIR interfaces. However, believe me, people still want some legacy old interfaces.
I imagine. This is your chance now. I've been trying to do this over chat. Here's an opportunity to raise 1 or 2 questions if you'd like it. But very limited audience interaction. Maybe it's because we have Friday afternoon and everybody's keen to close their computers and maybe spend time with their families or go out for that beer. Any question that you would like to add before we come to our closing messages and maybe even close early? There's nothing here. This audience is very good, very disciplined. Here we go. We have something from Bulgaris, from RKI. Is that RKI? Is that the one in Germany? Bulgaris, why don't you unmute yourself and pose your question? And who is your question related to? What's your position on? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, hello. It's exactly the RKI in Germany. And I had a question considering the new R5 version of FHIR. And which is the position of HL7 in Europe on this? Will you continue to design implementation guides in FHIR, or are you going to move in the near future to R5?
I mean, this is the decision that needs to be. This is Giorgio, straight to reply. The point is that one thing is to enable the specification of guide in different versions. Another thing is what the different organizations should decide to implement. So we have already started thinking to branch of our AG for release 5, but we also recognize that a lot of organizations are using release 4, and if there is an actual need to move to release 5, you can continue working with release 4 and maybe waiting release 6 to get advantage of some new feature. So is a decision on how to manage the change. If you need to manage and to work with evidence-based medicine, or if you need to work with the definitional resource in medication, you have to move to release 5. But if you are working with the other thing, you can reasonably stay in release 4 and maybe wait for release 6. But there are different opinions on that part. So please, Enrique.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Enrique, do you and I see the same question here from the chat about what's going to become? Yes, Enrique, I invite you to perhaps respond to that. Do I understand correctly that the mandatory status of HL7 FHIR comes from the EHDS? What is the transition period? Enrique, what's your take?
Yeah, well, I was going to grab that one. Thanks for the question. It's very useful. Well, indeed, it could come from that legal disposition. We believe it will via what we call implementation acts, or in the period. Right now, it's a question mark. We don't know what will come out of the negotiation between the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union, but I believe we will be looking at something of about 2 years to 3 years, which is not a lot of time when you actually think about it. 2 years to get yourself ready to be compliant and conformant with the standard is not a lot of time. So I would strongly advise in that we're doing this everywhere I can, that especially industry really captures what's happening immediately, because it takes time. I can say from experience, I led a digital agency that had about 500 IT staff. It takes a lot of time. Your workforce needs to know the standards, needs to think in a standard way, and it needs then to test, adapt, and adjust. So it's right now to start. And I guess some companies will be left behind if they're not fast.
Good. And perhaps we should add one way for you to get engaged is to join, for example, the Expand project, where the FHIR standards are going to be further developed, and they're very busy and very interested to create a community of companies there. So get in touch with us if that's something of interest. I think I promised we close early, and I stole already enough minutes from Catherine. Catherine is waiting. Let's close the Q&A here. Catherine, would you like to talk about next steps, please?
Hello, everyone. I think there is also another interesting question. For Italy, how do you manage the process to transform logical models to profiles? And meanwhile, I will share my screen. Giorgio, would you like to answer this one? This is a very nice question, in fact. And you need to give me the...
Giorgio, you are muted.
Sorry,
would you allow me to share my screen?
You are not the permission, so let me see how to do it. Catherine, I need to find you before. Okay. You should be able to share your screen now.
Yes, and how do you turn logical models into profiles?
We have the thing that is done is to describe the logical model, but there is no, in the current guide, any formal relationship between the logical model to the guide. We have that kind of thing in the European one.
Okay, thank you, Giorgio. And I would like to thank you all for participating. It's great to see how Spain and Italy and Greece are moving forward. And actually our next stop, and probably there will be another webinar before that, but in any event, our next face-to-face meeting is in Athens, in Greece. And there we will be actually testing a couple of things in connection with the virtual HL7 FHIR Connectathon, the 35th one. So Giorgio with Rick Merrick from Canada and Heineck will be the co-leads of the implementation guide track for the labs. So I do look forward to see how the affiliates around Europe and also companies are testing this specification to actually really show that we can accelerate development. There is a website already, so if you go into HL7 EU Working Group Meeting 2024, you can actually register and book your rooms. We have a quite exciting program for 3 days testing, but also a lot of tutorials, a lot of high-level speakers, and this is how it is. We have also a hackathon, and all this is part of the Athens Digital Health Week. Back to you, Michael, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. I'm going to now, I promised that you would be out by 5 o'clock. It is now 5 o'clock. Round of questions, round of applause for all of the presenters here. We're going to follow up with you, send you more information, links, and the slide deck, and a link to this recording here. So we will be in touch with you, and I invite you to stay in touch with us, and we will tell you exactly how to do that. Thank you so much for showing up on a thankless slot on Friday afternoon, giving us an hour of your time. We very much appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you in one of our future events, or maybe even in Athens. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. See you in Athens.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.